What's up, folks, and welcome back to Dyce Reacts, where we are staying in Australia tonight. Oh yeah, we are going to be checking out UK doctor moves to Australia. The truth 5 years later. Grandma side checks one out. We ain't going to waste no more time. Just going to get right into it, folks. We're going to get right into it. Oh yeah.
5 years ago, I left the NHS to come and work in Australia as a doctor. And honestly, I had no idea how much my life was going to change. If I were to go back in time, would I have still made the same decision? Firstly, welcome if you're new here. My name's Chris. I'm a doctor, I'm a content creator. And for the past few years, I've been on a bit of a wild ride trying to figure out how to balance both. I'm not going to go too much into why I left the UK and the NHS, because I have spoken about it at length before. Burnout, the weather, shit pay, doctors striking the NHS, poor work-life balance. And I don't want to bore you. If you want to watch that video, you can watch that video here. This video is more going to be about my experience of living and working in Australia for the past 5 years. Expectation versus reality. So I think a lot of people have the expectation when they come to Australia, it's going to be sunny every day. They're going to have a great outdoors lifestyle. They're going to have a good work-life balance. If you're a doctor, you're going to get paid more. You're going to be working fewer hours. When I first came over, I actually didn't really have much of an expectation for Australia. Yeah, I heard it was good, but I didn't really have super high expectations. I had one friend over here who got me a job in an emergency department in the city here in Brisbane. Obviously, he was raving about how good it was, but in some ways I didn't really trust him because he was kind of framing it like Jay was in The In-Betweeners.
In Australia.
I did think he was just kind of painting this picture to try and get me over here. So does the reality compare to the expectation that most people have of Australia and working as a doctor? In my experience, hell yeah. There's no part of me that disagrees with that expectation. Being in Brisbane, in Queensland, yes, it is sunny most days of the year. Of course, we get the occasional tropical storm. We get the occasional grey sky.
Yes, because I was wondering, where is he going to go? Is he going to say it's not true at all? Because I've seen videos where they talk about pays in terms of different work fields, and I'm like, it was sounding as if like he was saying it's not true. But from the videos I've seen, mostly everything seems true to me. So I was wondering, where is it going with that? But apparently, he's actually going in the direction that most people say. I'm assuming so far.
Of the year. Of course, we get the occasional tropical storm, we get the occasional grey sky, but really compared to the UK, it is actually paradise. And I know this isn't universal for the whole of Australia. For example, I know Melbourne and Sydney, the weather can be pretty crap sometimes from what I'm told, but right here where I'm living, the weather is amazing year round. I often explain to people how a UK summer is like a Brisbane winter. So the best weather in a UK summer, you know, when the sun's out, everyone's out and about. That's what the winter is like in Brisbane. I think the only main difference that I'd like to highlight is that in the summer in the UK, we get these long ass days where the sun sets like 10 p.m. In Bris, in the winter, it can set around like 5 or 6. And even during the summer, it only extends to maybe 6 or 7. So we do get shorter days here, but they're higher quality. And with regards to living an outdoor lifestyle, I'd say it's 100% true. I swim in the apartment pool every single day, even throughout winter, when it's a little bit cooler. In fact, I quite like that because it's a bit of a cold plunge. When I work out, when I train, I just go to the park to do exercise every single day of the year. And in fact, most of my community was built through the calisthenics and fitness community, the parkour community. So I made a lot of my friends through just training outdoors. And the beauty of that is that it's completely free. I've never needed to pay to work out in a gym. I've never needed to pay to be part of a fitness community. And that's one of the biggest things, I think. When I was back in London, when you hang out with your friends, you often have to pay to do activities to hang out with them. For example, going to the pub for drinks, going out for dinner. You can't really just hang out in a park. You can't just hang out at a beach or go for a walk. Yes, you can do those things, but it's pretty miserable most of the time. You know what I mean? The only caveat to that is that it can get brutally hot and humid in the summer. So around Christmas time, Jan, Feb, it is boiling. And some people often find...
I understand what he's saying. It's almost like every place that he had to go, it's almost like there is always money involved, like spending money in order to enjoy yourself or engage into something. But Australia feels different. And I've heard that there's a lot of activities that you could get for free, or it's not that costly. But the way you sell it, it's a little different, and that's a good way to put it.
In the summer, so around Christmas time, Jan, Feb, it is boiling, and some people often find it too hot. I know a lot of people who are used to the cold have some issues acclimatizing to the humidity, to the high temperatures. People often assume because I'm from the UK that I like the cold. I have no idea why. If I did, I would still be over there. I definitely wouldn't be here. Let's go into work, pay, hours, and culture as a doctor, because I know that's why half of you are here. So I'm going to talk about my work and my pay and my lifestyle when I first came over to Australia, because I know what I'm doing now is fairly unique and not everyone is going to be doing it. So what I do now is I work part-time as a rural emergency doctor, where I fly out to rural Australia, work in the emergency departments anywhere really across Australia, and then I fly home to spend my time off, which isn't really off because I'm creating content and other things. But I want to paint the example when I was working full-time when I first came over here. In your first year, when you come over to Australia as an international grad, you'll need to do a full year of full-time to get your general registration. So you come over on a provisional registration, and then after a year of full supervised work, you get your general registration with that pro. And when I first got the job, I got a job in an emergency department in the city, and I'd be working a full year, full-time in an emergency department. And honestly, that did scare the poop out of me, because if you were to tell me that I was going to do that in the NHS, it would have been the worst year of my life. But here, it was very different. So here's the shocker. I was actually doing 38 hours a week, on average, every week, working in the emergency department when I came here to Australia. So this was often 38 hours averaged out over a fortnight. So you could have like a heavier week, but then it will be made up for in the second week. Here's an example of this, which it just would have been completely unheard of in the NHS. So say if you just did a run of nights in the UK, say you did 4 nights, 10-hour shift or something like that, you might get a day, recovery day, maybe a day off after that. Then you'd be straight back into day shifts or evening shifts.
Damn.
In Australia, when I was doing that first job, you do a couple of evenings, then you do your 3 or 4 nights, and then you'd have a whole week off to recover.
Damn.
Literally built into the roster. It wasn't annual leave.
So the videos are not even remotely lying. I mean, they're being 100% truthful. A whole week? That's crazy. I mean, normally you might have a couple of days, you might have 2-3 days for the max, but a whole week to recover? That's insane. I want to hear the pay already. I know it's a good pay, but I want to hear it from his mouth, from the horse's mouth.
Recover. Literally built into the roster. It wasn't annual leave. It wasn't sick leave. It was built into the roster. You had 7 days off after doing a run of nights. And that was just like, I didn't even need to take any more time off. It was just built in. So often after those night stints, I would just pack up and go somewhere for 7 days. I remember I went up to Cairns. I did like a liverboard scuba diving thing for 7 days. Other times I traveled around Australia, which would just be unheard of in the NHS.
Crazy.
During that time, I never felt unsupported at work. There were always a load of consultants around. There was always senior cover, and honestly just a much better work culture overall. Let's talk about pay, because everyone wants to know about pay and salary. It is important, of course. I wish I had access to some of my old paychecks, but when I first came over to Oz working as a resident doctor, so like a RMO, SHO level, my take-home pay after tax and everything, it was roughly around $3,000 per fortnight. So around $6,000 per month. And lastly, nothing to do with the money, nothing to do with the hours, but the value and the respect that doctors get here. When you tell people you're a doctor back in the UK, people often look at you as if you just told them you're a bin man or something. It's not particularly impressive. And I'm still trying to work out why that when I came over to Australia, if you tell people you're a doctor, you're automatically held in higher regard. Potentially it's because people know that doctors get paid more here, so they think you're well off, you have more money, you're smart. And that's definitely a huge thing I noticed as soon as I came over here. So having lived this for 5 years, what are the pros and what are the cons of moving over to Australia? I think we've already touched on the pros of the lifestyle and the weather, the income, the hours, the respect, and right now the flexibility of the locums and the travel for me. And I'm fully aware that you can locum in the UK, but it's just a whole nother level in Australia in terms of job opportunity and the ability to travel and the ability to earn quite a lot. The cons, obviously, I'm so far away from my family and my friends back in the UK, and that sucks.
Definitely.
That ache of that longing to be around the people you love, will never go away, unfortunately. And out of all the things, all the positives and the negatives of coming to Australia, that thing is definitely the hardest for most people to face, myself included. The other thing is, one thing that I've noticed is that a lot of UK doctors who come over here, they'll end up in emergency or GP training. I have met a couple of doctors who go into specialty training. I met a UK doctor who's doing neurology training over here. I met a UK doctor who is doing geriatric medicine over here. And I've also met a doctor doing ENT surgical training here. It does happen, but it's definitely less common. And as far as I'm aware, it's quite competitive to get onto these specialty training programs, especially as an international grad. You do have to work quite hard to get onto these programs. Yeah. And most of the UK doctors I know are either doing GP or emergency. So with that...
Yes, someone also mentioned that. I think it was a lady who mentioned that in the video. It's very, very competitive, and it can be very intimidating for someone that doesn't speak English, that doesn't have English as their first language. It kind of can be very intimidating because they're thinking that they're not speaking good enough from their perspective. So sometimes they shy away from the jobs that they are qualified for and do lesser jobs. What he's saying there makes a lot of sense, and that's what I've heard from the videos. I'm just stating what I've heard from many videos, and what he's saying there just compounds that fact. We'll take it back a bit.
And most of the UK doctors I know are either doing GP or emergency. So with that and the emotional struggle of leaving your family and friends behind, I think the actual rate of doctors who return to the UK within 5 years is about 90%, which is actually way higher than I thought it'd be, considering how good the lifestyle is, how much I enjoy it. But most people seem to return back to the UK eventually. So who should do it? If you love money, if you love good weather, if you love an outdoors lifestyle, you should definitely do it. Who struggles? I've found the people who struggle the most when they come to Australia are people who are very family oriented. Not that I'm not family oriented, but people who they need to see their mum every single day, for example, or their sister or a close friend. Those people definitely probably should not come to Australia, because if you can't handle the distance, you need to think very carefully whether or not you want to come and taste this lifestyle. I often wonder, is it good for those people who come over to Australia, they experience the lifestyle and then go back to the UK? Can they really thrive in the UK knowing what their life could have been like? Is it worth them coming over just for 1 to 2 years, just to go back to a suboptimal lifestyle? Maybe it's better that they never expose themselves to it. I don't know if that's the correct answer, but if you know that you're definitely going to go back because of family reasons or whatever, it's like tasting a delicious steak, knowing that you'll have to go back to plain rice for the rest of your life. If that's a good analogy, probably not. Yeah. Practical advice on actually how to come over here. I think most of us come over on a 482 visa. It's like a working skill visa. One thing I found in Australia is really who you know rather than what you know. If you have the right network, if you know people already working here, reach out to them, see if there's any vacancies in the hospital. And that's usually the easiest way. That's how I got the job here. Your network definitely helps a ton. For me, this move here wasn't about swapping countries. It was about building a life of freedom, creativity, self-expression, time for the people I care about. And that is really why I've created this YouTube series, the Life Lab series. It is about experimenting with lifestyle design, finding something that actually works and sharing it with you online.
Wow, that was very interesting, and it's compounding a lot of the information that I've seen. Everything looks more factual, even now, from what he's saying. Having a 7-day, like almost like a week off, he's saying, after you do like the night stints as a doctor. I mean, you wouldn't even look for vacation per se, because 7 days is a lot of free time, and it's not vacation, because many places you usually get like 2 weeks vacation, or maybe if you want an extra week, you have to ask for it in advance. You know, like all those kind of things. Definitely kind of makes you think about your own situation, like you just on the hamster wheel all the time. And you would never think, I would never think in a country like Australia you would find such. I would think you would find that maybe in more of a laid back countries that are not really modernized as such, in terms of everything is just slow pace. I would expect it from those countries, but not Australia. I would think Australia would be, in terms of the work scene, would be something similar to maybe like 20% less than the US in terms of the vigorous work week, but it's so laid back and it's just so well balanced. So I can imagine it's very appealing for someone that really wants to have a balanced life so that they can do something outside of their work, even if they love their work. It would be such an addition to their life. And then when he made that statement that people hold doctors in a higher regard in Australia than the UK, he mentioned the finance, and definitely the finance has a lot to do with that. I don't know if it's just the public, but I know for sure that the government, which I will imply maybe the whole of Australia as a whole, really care about safetyness, and doctors are part of that safetyness. They really take it very seriously. So I guess the culture of safetyness as well also gives the job, puts this on a level of high regard, not just the high pay. So I would think that it's something that is in the culture of Australia. So those jobs that are maybe like in safetyness in terms of for a country, I think they look at it in high regard, even if it's not in the top paying jobs, but they will still have a high level of respect for those individuals. So I think it's those two things, a combination of those two things, so the culture aspect of safetyness and also the financial aspect of that job. If you want to see that long run actually that I do, hit me over on Dyce Reacts by the Buzzin Reactions. This is where I'm going to be making my exit. So until next time, peace out.